And we are live.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, dear.
Who would have thought this would happen?
Me, because I didn't have my Friday guest on. They had to cancel, so you're my sit-in.
Well, it's my pleasure to be on Michelle Humes Live.
I have a little glare. Let me go fix my stuff. The audience is going to ask you to sing. I know that.
Okay, I see a card just pulled up. That must be that glare that came through.
I'm getting this fixed up. Just a second. Nobody go away.
All right. Shout out to Veronica Figueroa for the setup that Michelle has now with the big bar, with the light and the camera and the microphone.
Action.
All
right, Stephen Humes. Many people know all about me and our business at Michelle Humes Group and Michelle Humes Live, but what they don't know is that there is someone else who has an just as interesting of a background, if not more, in my opinion. And that what our life we built together before real estate, which was completely different. So I just thought it'd be really fun for you to tell your story today and for you to be able to share sort of your journey as an artist, because obviously being an artist is something that is so challenging, interesting. We've made tons of incredible memories, but it's no different than running any business, is it?
No, it's no different. I think the question I get the most is, what's your favorite opera, or when did you start singing? I bet you started singing when you were 4 years old. And really, I didn't know that music was an option for a career until I had already started college. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. And a voice lesson in my second year. And then I changed my major in my third year to voice. And then went from there as far as gaining traction, going to small summer programs, then going to larger summer programs, and then going to larger houses as a smaller role and covering things. And then finally, the deal of all deals, we were just married. This was 2003. And my manager called me and said, "Hey, I got an opportunity for you in Germany. It's a 2-year commitment. And you'd start at the bottom and you'd work your way up the totem pole there. And you'd be surrounded by top people doing great work constantly." And then I whisked this girl right here, away to Germany in 2003, about 2 months after we were married.
Look at us now.
And she said yes.
I think that says a lot about, I remember that day that your manager called, and I remember being so scared of what that looked like for us. Neither of us spoke German. We did not really know each other that well. I had just moved to New York City. And to think that we then stayed there and built this life together there for 12 years, which resulted in one of the most incredible opera careers, that one could write about or hear about, just shows you that if you will take a risk sometimes in life, incredible things are on the other side of risk. Because certainly for both of us, I know I can speak for both of us, that was so risky. I mean, we literally moved with 2 suitcases each.
Mm-hmm.
We barely knew each other, and we definitely didn't know German or one single soul in Germany. And I think the marriage piece of it is so interesting, because if you only have each other, you have to lean in, and leaning in life has just been a thing that we've had. So gosh, that seems like a lifetime. It was a lifetime ago. It was 18 years ago.
I was 33 at the time, and I remember that most, bases mature later in life, so you don't really get your wheels spinning until you're in your 40s at least.
Mhm.
So I still had time to do that whole learning phase, the practical hands-on learning, and it was a really great opportunity given to someone who I felt, hey, I don't deserve it. This is a one in a million chance. I also had a lot of debt at the time,
Mhm.
and I knew the only way out of debt is to take your best advantage and go for it, because you can't just take whatever comes your way. Living in New York as a starving artist, surrounded by 1,000 other starving artists, all trying for the same little jobs, you've got to, if you're given a star that's shooting by you, you should grab it while you can. So that's why I figured 2 years, we're in, we're out, going to come back as, this huge experience, and we can use that as a stepping stone to bigger and better things. But
And we
then it
did.
didn't really turn out that way.
Well, it didn't turn out the way we thought it was going to turn out, but I think that I know I can speak for myself. And, I didn't have a traditional job in the sense there, as we know. And yet, uh, this career that you built and these experiences that you had shaped who you are today. They shaped who I am today. Now, I didn't get started in my career because of it. I'd been a high school teacher. Obviously, I was a singer when I met you, and teaching chorus singing. But I think that that just goes to show that, even for me, I was 35 years old when I started this career, and if I hadn't had the experiences I'd had in Germany, internationally, all the things that we experienced, there is no way I would be running the business that I'm running today with your help without those experiences. Would you agree?
I would agree. We'd be at some, champagne party after an opera, and everyone would be all dressed up and not talking to other people outside of their little circle. You'd have a little group of actors over here, dancers over here, the impressum, or the people who are in charge of running the place over here. And then you'd have them be rubbing elbows with the dignitaries or the mayors of other areas, whatever the equivalent is.
Mhm.
And sure enough, Michelle just walked right up to him and said, "Hi, I want to ask you about this, that, and that. Things about that would affect all opera singers, not politically, but like how many years you can be involved in a fest situation, which is the system we were in, or what is the deal with the retirement?" And she would just come out and just lay her cards on the table, and they'd say, "Oh, who are you?" And I became known as Michelle's husband very fast. But the Frau Humes is also a moniker that we still toss around now and then too.
Well, yeah, I know that there's serious business going down if I'm being called Frau Humes. It's funny because opera in Germany is very much a celebrity status. It is not anything like America in that regard. Everybody grows up going to the opera. Everybody can afford to go to the opera. I think it's a very affordable thing. And so those experiences, though, I mean, I can say without a shadow of a doubt, and you had a distraction, you had the work, right? So had fear or being afraid of certain things in a different way because you had to perform at a certain level. On the other hand, I had this constant like, who am I?
Mhm.
I'm here to support somebody else's dream as an artist, which was a dream come true. And yet it was fascinating every single day to navigate our way through that. So tell about, because I think this is really interesting for opera, people that are interested in opera. And we do not want opera to be a lost art. We want it to continue on. Certainly, we've had our challenges with COVID in regards to just opera continuing on in the same regard that it has. But in those 8 years that you were at the Bayerische Staatsoper, how many performances did you sing? And what would you say was like the highlight of your time there?
Well, I wrote it down because it was very special. Because some guys only do 32 shows a year, and some guys were on a sliding scale where they went down to 15 shows a year. My first year, I did 72 shows, and my second year, I did 100 shows. Now, granted, there's small parts where you walk on for sometimes even 2 minutes, do your little bit, and leave. But you are it's a lot of pressure because if you mess up one little bit, they think, oh, you're a failure. Now the big guys get up there and sing, and they mess up for a whole act one, and they say, "Oh, so and so had a moderately okay first act, but in the second act he did really well." So you had to get to the theater, you had to get in makeup and get in costume. Don't be late. There's going to be 2,000 people looking at you. So that's the pressure with that. But with what I did, it ended up being in the 8 years, I did 500 shows altogether. And that included a few concerts around town, but it was all combined with the house, and a few concerts with the house, but in other countries. And then in the 4+ years after that, we went freelance. And I think I did another 250 shows altogether around everywhere. So I'm probably inching up near 750 right about now.
In that time, I would say your performances, because when I met you, you'd already been performing quite a while. So I would say you're closer to 1,000 performances or so altogether, including last night at the local high school soccer game. Go Chiefs. Go Chiefs, go Stars Mill, go Panthers. We're going to cheer them all on. Actually, Stars Mill won last night in overtime. So interesting, which is exactly where I started my career. I taught at Stars Mill and graduated from McIntosh, which is so fascinating now to be back in our hometown. Okay, so let's switch gears and let's talk about the practicality of what it takes to be an artist, because I think that this is where it's so interesting as a business owner, as an independent contractor, to know that rising to being a Grammy winner or to singing for the Pope or the Prime Minister of Japan, all of these things that you have done, and I have just been so privileged to come along for the ride, this doesn't happen overnight. Success like this does not happen overnight, as we know. And so even just in that 100 performances in 1 year, how many operas did you sing that year?
Of the 100 performances, probably about somewhere between 20 and 30 different.
Okay, I was going to guess 30. So 30 different operas. And so let's give an example. You show up to work on a Tuesday and you're going to have rehearsal for 7 hours, right? And you may sing in those 7 hours French, you may sing Italian, you may sing in English, you may sing in German, you may sing in Russian, all those things. And then at night, what do you sing?
Well,
you're frozen. You're frozen.
Am I frozen? Sorry, Wi-Fi is a little bad at our house. Hello. Well, 50% of the operas we did, because I finally wrote it down once, 50% is Italian and 25% was German. Even though we were living in Germany, we would always do everything in the original language. So it doesn't matter if it's Czech or French or English or Spanish, we would always sing the original and work very hard with linguistic coaches to get it just right.
Let me stop you.
Go ahead.
Because if you can think about this, folks watching, so you're American in a German opera house singing in German, and you've got to convince 2,500 people that that is your native language, even though they're looking in the bio and see you're American. But they're going to understand the words you say, right? So did you think that was a challenge, or did you take it as just, okay, I got this?
I took it as a challenge to fool them all. And I worked my French so good that when I was in a house, somebody would run up to me and start speaking French afterward, thinking that
was in Torino. I remember.
I was in Italy, and a guy ran up. He was so happy to meet another Frenchman in Italy, and he ran up and he started saying that my name didn't sound like it was not English. It's like from London or somewhere. And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't speak French. I'm sorry." And he says, "Well, it's very impeccable." He was writing for the newspaper.
Not to put you on the spot, but sing a little bit of that French, because that is one of the most beautiful pieces ever. Just like one little line. Do you know what it is?
No, I don't know.
You can't remember which opera that was?
It was Romeo and Juliet, but it was Romeo and Julia, which was half ballet and then a lot of chorus, and then I was.
Well, you'll think of it by the end of it, because that's the same performance that the over mics down in the dressing rooms weren't working in. they got to your part and they breathed in and the orchestra was ready to play your opening part and you weren't there, correct?
Correct.
Whoopsie.
Yeah.
But think of that French while we're here. And I mean, not to distract you, but I do want you at some point to sing a little bit of that because it is so beautiful. If not, I'm going to find it and play it for everybody.
Well, I've got a little bit of German ready. I don't know.
Oh, you were prepared.
I was prepared because I figured I would be asked. I figured.
Yes. Well, hopefully the people watching are going to comment and ask for you to sing. So you will be forced into it. Okay. So back to what makes a singer and where you go from a kid that's 18, 19 years old who didn't even know they wanted to sing opera when they went to go become a science teacher at school to ending up winning a Metropolitan Opera competition, being in the grand finalists of that, singing on the stage for thousands of people. And then quite immediately after that, going into this international career as a fest singer in Munich, Germany, one of the greatest opera houses in the world. What does the day-to-day look like? You're singing 30 different operas in 1 year. You're singing in 5, 6 different languages. You really need to know what you're saying so that you can convey that emotion to your audience. And you just never know who speaks that language that's in the audience, obviously. So talk to us about the day-to-day, because I have a feeling people think it's quite glamorous. And in the end, it's very much like running any business or any job.
Well, it is a lot of nose to the grindstone. You practice by yourself in a small little room with a piano for your voice, but then you got to know, you keep your voice going like you would tune up a car, but then you work on where you're going. So you got to work on all the text, getting the pronunciation right, working on your languages, studying language skills. And that's a completely different thing than singing 8 hours to get that piece right. So you've got to really work on making sure you know how to pronounce those German twists that are dangerous and that are very telling. Oh, you sound like an American. So the day-to-day is a lot of that. But the whole purpose of all that is that you never know who's going to be sitting in on a rehearsal, because other visiting intendants or intendants, the people who run the show in different cities, they are often just coming by for coffee to talk with other intendant about their season. And so you never know when someone's going to be sitting there, and it's often dark and you can't see. And sometimes they say, oh, by the way, we have 200 guests today afternoon for your rehearsal. And you have to not be prepared. You have to be absolutely shining all the time. And I would get this very often when I meet someone new that I hadn't met before. They would say, you know what, I actually did stop by a rehearsal you were doing in Salzburg, and that was 3 years ago. And yeah, I think you're a great fit for such and such, so let's work together. So networking, as far as opera goes, is completely different than the other type of businesses where it's not a performance. It's like being a celebrity or a movie star in a way that people see you who you don't know, and people think that you're their friend already, and they haven't met you yet. They've just seen you on stage.
Well, I would like to bring the similarities forward because I think there are a lot more than we may even think about, right? So I'm out with my colleagues and we're having fun and we're on an outing, and there's someone there who recognizes me because what? We run Pandora ads, or we sponsored the soccer team's jerseys and they know my picture because they've seen our signs and that kind of thing. And at all times, I'm looking for our next piece of business, right? I'm looking for my pipeline that I'm going to build. And so and they're looking too. I mean, that's what's so interesting about real estate or running a team, that kind of thing. Or maybe an agent's there that has thought about joining our team. We're always auditioning. And if we wait to practice in life until it's time for the performance, will we be ready? And the answer is typically no. So we have to put in the day-to-day business so that when we're ready to perform, we are, right? What were you going to say?
I was going to say, what you do in practice is what you'll do on the stage. Yeah. And people are always saying, man, you Americans are always showing up with your French on point from day one, even though we have 6 weeks of rehearsal. and you're ready to get over that hurdle, why don't you take this week off because everyone else has to be caught up to where you are? If you don't show up and practice, well, here's the other way of saying it. What you practice makes permanent. Not practice makes perfect, but practice will make permanent. So whatever you practice with, that's going to be what your performance is. So if you're sloppy in your operatic, artistic 10 a.m. rehearsal, that's what's going to show up on stage
Mm.
more often than not.
Yeah, because what shows up privately always shows up publicly, right? So what shows up in rehearsal will always show up in the performance. What shows up in script practice for trying to get a listing will always show up for the listing presentation. What shows up privately will always show up publicly. And it's the same in whatever business you're in. It's the same.
Mhm.
And if you wait until the moment where, first of all, this is the fun thing. I'll never forget. This was, I think, what was our memory at Easter in Paris the other day? Was it 8 years ago? 7 years ago? Estella was 3, so it must have been 7 years ago.
Yeah, 7 years ago, sure.
And you were singing in Paris, and
Mhm.
you'd actually hopped in a couple of times in Munich. But it's just far enough away that we couldn't train home with you. So you actually flew back and forth, and Estella and I stayed in Paris, and we were there a total of 2 months. But then London called. Remember that? And then you had to step in to London. Was it Covent Garden or the orchestra, something, a Beethoven 9? I can't remember. But what was it?
I'm trying to think. It was a substantial role, but it was
No, I think it was an Easter. It was Easter, so it was an Easter mass or something. It was a concert, wasn't it?
no, it was a full-on performance, and it was the final dress rehearsal. And Robert, I can't remember his last name now, beloved bass, was sick, and I might go on for the show in 2 days if I could, whatever. And so I did it fine and did everything top notch. But then he said, "No, I feel good enough," and he came back and did the show. So I got a good dress rehearsal and rubbed some elbows in London.
But that just goes to show, if you had not been practicing that opera, you would have had to just say, yeah, I can't come because I'm not prepared. But
Right.
because you were always practicing for when that opportunity might arise, you were prepared. And we as entrepreneurs, and I'm talking to my agents right now, agents that are watching and agents that want to be successful in real estate, listen up. If you want to be successful, you practice when no one's watching. And then the moment the time comes, which is the $2 million listing appointment, or that buyer that's only here for 2 hours and they want to know just the top 3 houses to go see. If you have not been previewing, if you have not been practicing, you may miss that opportunity. And that is so powerful, because those things, that moment, could have just as easily changed the course of your career, just like the Munich opportunity did, because that 100% changed your career.
100%, yes.
Okay, so I want to hear some of the interesting places you've worked and the people you've worked with, or maybe just the places. So when we went freelance, when we left Munich, we stayed in Munich, but then we traveled the world, I would say 9 or 10 months out of the year. Would you agree?
Yes. And also Munich hired me back for some of those trips because some people were not wanting to go on the trips, or they needed an extra base, and bases are hard to find. So I got to go to Japan. I've been there twice. Went to China one time. I've been to Moscow by the Bolshoi one time. Most of the houses in Europe. So I've gotten to know train systems very well. I've got to know border crossings very well. A lot of the airports. I've been in Copenhagen was a very interesting one because I went there in December and January, and that's when the sun peaks up over the horizon for about 4 hours and goes back down. It doesn't go up and down the way we have it here. And it was just dark and nighttime at 4 p.m. And you're thinking, oh, it was cold. And, and there were these little boats running around the harbor that were full of water with guys in them, and they were hot tubs floating, and they were drinking beer with a little motor on the back. I thought that was the darndest thing, you know. But you see all these little things about the culture everywhere you go, and you think that's really cool, or that's really different, that's really strange, or people actually live this way or think this way or work this way and network this way. And so it's good to get out and to see how other people do it and the differences between Upper Germany and Hamburg and Copenhagen and versus Lower Italy, the way the lifestyle runs, the way you have a siesta when you're in Madrid,
Mm-hmm.
and the way that Germans have to have their own version of a siesta. They stop working 1 to 4 every.
It cut out. You said 1 to 4 every day?
They stop work from 1 to 4. You know, if it's a rehearsal, they work 10 to 1, and then 4 to 7. You know,
Tell the story about when we went and you asked when you got time off. You were like, so, because they told you work 6 days a week, but then if you have a performance on a Sunday, you have to work Sunday too. And I think you asked something about when do we
arrived.
have a couple days off?
Well, we arrived September 1st because we thought, man, September 1st, we got to be there. But work actually started on the 15th because you had to take a while to get your papers in order, which is a big deal in Germany. And then
we're still married after we went through that, by the way.
Yes, jawohl. And then I said, when are days off? And they said, oh no, that was the 6 weeks you just finished. We're not having another day off until
August.
Until August. August 1st. So we're gonna have a big party on the 31st of July, and then everyone has 6 weeks off. But then you get every little holiday off, unless you have a show.
That's right.
But you don't have rehearsals on those days. So Christmas Day, we always did Bohème on the 25th. Yep. And Christmas Eve was off because that was their holy day, Christmas Eve.
Yep.
New Year's Day, we always had something like, what's the one with the chandelier that we always did in the champagne?
Fledermaus.
Fledermaus was always on the 1st of January.
Yep.
Or was it 31st of December?
It was on New Year's Eve. And then Hansel and Gretel was also all throughout Christmas as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny. You don't get a day off, really.
No.
Welcome.
Okay, a couple more things I think are really interesting that we should talk about. The first one is, what is the longest opera you've ever sung?
Probably,
or you don't have to name it, but how long was it?
Probably 4 hours, but I'm not on stage the whole time. But 4 hours is probably the time of the opera. That'd be Meistersinger.
Mm-hmm.
And you go for an hour and a half, then you take a 45-minute break. Then you go for another hour and a half. You can take another 45-minute break. It's like that.
And it's not air conditioned. So if it's summer in Germany and you're wearing a wool costume that's probably 50 years old, it's 100 degrees inside the dressing room at times in July, and you still have to sing.
You still do. You drink some water and keep going.
Yep. And then another thing I wanted to talk about, when we rent an apartment, just because I think this is interesting. I was telling somebody this the other day. We had to buy our kitchen. We didn't own our apartment, but we had to buy a kitchen. And I was talking about how I want to teach other agents and other people in business how to be really good with money and how to, be responsible, because so much of my job is being responsible for the company dollar here and being a good steward of the company dollar. And so one of my big things is not eating out all the time. And I learned that because we had to buy a kitchen. We really didn't have a lot of extra money. So I think my parents might have even loaned us a couple $1,000s to add to our, I think it was $10,000 we had to pay for our kitchen.
At Küchenland.
And Küchenland. Yeah. Exactly. I'd forgotten that. And I said to you, I was 24 at the time, I think. And I said to you, I'm learning how to cook because that was entirely too much money we had to spend on a kitchen for us to go eat out. So we'll either eat in the cantina at the opera, which was very, very reasonable and delicious, by the way, or we will eat at home. And we made that commitment. And, people often ask me, did you travel a lot while you were in Munich?
What was the local food like?
Well, we ate some of it, but a lot of times it was at a party for the opera. And we worked really hard to get out of that debt and to change our lives through opera. And then, of course, through real estate, which has changed all of our lives. So we're going to finish up, Stephen, but we want to talk about now what you do. And up until COVID hit, you were still singing about 4 months out of your way, correct?
Correct. Yeah. My last
Um,
performance was in February or maybe March of 2020,
yeah.
and that was it.
And so many of our friends in opera have been out of work for that entire time, and so obviously our hearts have gone out to them. And the opera and orchestra, all of the industry as a whole. And what it makes me think about a lot is how we were able to diversify and get you back off the road in a lot of ways, so that you didn't have to miss so much time with our kids because of the flexibility in real estate. And so I would just say to anybody watching that is scared to take a risk or scared to make a choice that may or may not work out for you. I did that. It changed our lives. I certainly had Steven's support, and our lives are so full and rich because of it. Yes, we have challenges. Everybody does. And now our challenge is balancing Steven being on the road and this big business that we've built. But you know what? At the other side of fear, there's always, always, always reward. You may not see it today. You may not see it 3 months from now. It may even take 3 or 4 years to find that reward or find your place, but it can happen.
Very well said.
Oh, thank you, dear. I paid him to say that. All right. Anything else that you want the audience to know about you? Okay. I have some things, if I
Okay,
may.
go ahead.
Okay, sweetheart. So, Stephen is a fabulous magician. You should know
This is
that.
true.
This is
Yeah,
true.
you have a lot
Uh,
of time backstage to practice it, so I started working on that as a hobby.
so, he is a wonderful magician. If anybody ever needs a magic trick, don't be scared to ask him to pull out the cards. And our children much prefer you than me. Is that okay to tell that?
Sure, I'm home with them a lot more. I don't know, kissing their boo-boos.
You're so sweet to our kids. You're such a great dad. That's what I was leading with. You're a wonderful father.
Well, thank you.
And I love that we waited a long time to have kids, because I think we were able to just have so much fun and learn a lot about each other and learn a lot about what we wanted in life before we had kids. And I think that we have young kids still, so we have a lot longer to go. But I think that what's been most interesting is getting to be able to spend a lot more time with you, both for the girls and myself. And
Mhm.
that even though COVID happened, even though there has been some really hard times for people not having their jobs, I believe we've made the best of it. And I think you would
Mhm.
agree.
Sure, and, I think that, travel is very hard because you're on the road for 2 months, and I don't mind that part of because I started thinking about this yesterday, what you focus on expands, and I've not focused on opera for the last year, and at the moment, I have no contracts coming up, but I've also said I just wanna do concerts for a while because concerts are only a 3 or 4-day commitment, or overseas, maybe a 10-day commitment, but not a 2-month commitment, so it's a big difference now, and it will pay off, if you will. We'll get family time, and, I just want to double back on one other thing we said before about Michelle just running up to a local dignitary and saying, "Hey, what do you think about my husband doing X, Y, and Z?" When two people have one career, it's kind of hard because you have your different roles. And I'm not the person who would go up to that person and network, but this girl was the person who would network. So we finally found her niche now where she can shine, because you can only push someone else so hard, because I wasn't a networker. I wasn't going to do all those follow-ups and auditions that were possible on the side. And I think that I'm very proud of Michelle for what she's accomplished now in coming around to her strengths, which are better without me being the career to be
Mm.
pushed.
I think there's room for both. Well, thank you, sweetheart. I appreciate that. And they actually called me the Zinetverka, if we want to be
Oh, Michelle, you was a networker.
Michelle Zinetverka. I'm still a networker. Listen, relationships and people are everything. Relationships and people are what make a good business great. And I obviously believed that as an opera wife. I certainly believe it as a business owner and still an opera wife. And so we build businesses through people. We do not build businesses with systems and protocols. We build businesses and we build a life experience through people. And I will always say that and always believe it. And you're one of those people. And Crystal Sample says, you are the best and our team appreciates you so much, Stephen. And she is right, because you do
Thank you, Crystal.
so many thankless jobs and you're just so great at it behind the scenes, getting us all squared away. Okay. We are going to finish with some singing. So I would like to know, I did not get to approve this, sir. What are you going to sing for us?
Well, I thought very quickly a little scene from Tristan and Isolde would be appropriate, only because people think, oh, it's all, la, da, 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 these fun tunes we all know. But it's all a lot of serious drama. And this is part of King Mark's soliloquy. I'll just give you 30 seconds. Don't worry.
I mean, don't rush it. We've got time. We're on Facebook.
We've got the world of time. I can do all 4 hours right now.
It's Friday, so go for it.
This is Tristan has gone and stabbed him in the back, if you will, by taking his bride away from him. But they loved each other first, and King Mark doesn't know it yet, and he's mad at him. But he's saying how wonderful the girl is, how much he loves her, how much she helps him, and through treachery and deceit, you won her for me, and yet you deceived me. So I'm just going to give you this 30 seconds of it very quickly.
Is there music?
No, I got my little piano here.
Oh, okay. A true professional. Here we go.
I'll do it sitting down too, if that's all right.
It's okay.
Die so herrlich holter Abend, mir die Seele musste laben, trotz Feind und Gefahr, die fürstliche Braut, brachtest du mir dar.
Bravo. That's lovely.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry it wasn't the French piece.
I know. Did you?
I know. I'm going to prepare that one. We'll do another one.
We're going to think of it. I could sing it, but now I'm on the spot just like you.
Okay.
That was lovely. And I think that there is so much more that you offer to the world. Opera is just one little slice of the pie. I certainly adore you and have for 20 plus years. So thank you for being who you are to our team and our family. But I just think this is so fun to see how different industries actually have so much of the same basics. It's not really that, yes, it's hard work, but it's simple. It's when you make it complicated that things tend to just not work out. It's when things are simple and things are consistently simple that great results will happen. So
I adore you too. I had to get that in.
You adore me too. Woo! Yeah. Now Facebook knows it must be official.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, all times aren't great, right? I mean, we are married. It is not always roses. Most of the time is, but there are some days that it is hard, especially with us switching careers in just the last 5 years. I think that's a huge thing that a lot of people would just like us have struggled with. And we've made it out on the other end and we're just doing our thing. Right, babe?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, thanks for letting me put you on the spot and being on Michelle Humes Live. If you want to see more about Stephen Humes, I must tell you this. Please go to YouTube and put in Career Day Opera Singer. And you will see the sweetest video you will ever watch, narrated by our then 5-year-old Estella Humes. And you will get to see what the life of an opera singer is like day in and day out. And you can find Stephen and all of his recordings also on stephenhumes.com. Until then, if you would like to talk about partnering at EXP or how I can help you in your business, please hop in my calendar at michellehumes.com. Would love to have an opportunity to talk to you about our business and what we're doing to have full lives with family, with a strong business, with awesome people just like you, dear.
Vice versa.
Ditto. All right. Have a great weekend and happy Easter, everybody. Take care.
Happy Easter.